You know that cup of coffee you might be sipping on right now? Well, it could be doing a whole lot more than just waking you up. Researchers are finding some really surprising connections between this daily ritual and cancer survival. So let's break down what the science is telling us about the hidden power in your morning cup.
Okay, let's just jump right in with the number that really grabs your attention, 49%. So, a study out of Sweden found that for a specific group of breast cancer patients, we're talking those on tamoxifen with ER-positive tumors, drinking 2 or more cups of coffee a day was linked to a nearly 50% lower risk of the cancer coming back. A number that big, yeah, it definitely makes you want to learn more.
Now, before we get another step further, I need to be absolutely crystal clear about something. This is for your information only. It is not medical advice. The whole point here is to share some fascinating research so you can have a better, more informed conversation with your oncologist. Seriously, please don't go changing your diet or anything without talking to them first. All right, now that we have that very important disclaimer out of the way, let's dig into the evidence. We're going to start by looking at some of the most compelling statistics coming out of studies on major types of cancer. Here's another really big number for you, 40%. In patients with advanced colorectal cancer, studies have shown that drinking more coffee is connected to about a 40% drop in the risk of the cancer returning or, well, in mortality. And what's super interesting is that in some of these studies, both regular and decaf coffee seem to have this effect. That kind of hints that maybe, just maybe, caffeine isn't the only hero in the story. And then you see this, a 70% reduction in the risk of progression. But, and this is a big but, this number shows just how specific all of this can be. This result was seen in a very, very particular group of prostate cancer patients. It's not some universal magic bullet, and we're actually going to unpack why in just a little bit. It's the perfect example of how targeted these things are.
And check this out. This shows the potential impact on actual real-world survival time. In a study on liver cancer patients who had already had a transplant, the ones drinking 3 or more cups of coffee a day lived for an average of 11 years. For those who didn't drink much coffee, or any at all, it was only 7.5 years. That is a massive difference, 3.5 extra years.
So, just to do a quick recap here, the strongest, most consistent evidence we're seeing for coffee's potential positive effects seems to be in these 4 main areas: colorectal cancer, that specific ER-positive breast cancer, certain prostate cancers, and liver cancer.
Right, so this obviously leads us to the biggest question of all. Why? I mean, how could a simple drink possibly be doing all of this? Let's get into the science behind the sip. Okay, so the first thing you have to get is that this is not just about caffeine. Coffee is this incredibly complex brew, and it's just packed with hundreds of natural chemicals we call bioactive compounds. Now, caffeine gets all the press, but researchers are actually looking at a whole cast of characters here, especially compounds with names like chlorogenic acid and caffeic acid.
This table is a fantastic snapshot of the leading theories. So for that ER-positive breast cancer we mentioned, the thinking is that some of these compounds might actually mess with the receptors that the cancer uses for fuel. For colorectal cancer, it seems to be more about the coffee's powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory punch. And then in the liver, it looks like caffeine itself is blocking a specific receptor that can help tumors grow. So you see, different cancers, totally different game plans.
But this is where things get really, really personal. The research makes it totally clear that this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Your own genetics can play a massive role in whether coffee helps you or maybe even hurts you. And the research on prostate cancer gives us probably the most stunning example of this. It turns out it's not just about if you drink coffee, it's about how your body actually handles it. And the key factor seems to be how fast you metabolize caffeine.
Okay, this is absolutely fascinating. Turns out about half of us are genetically programmed to be fast metabolizers of caffeine. For that group, drinking 1 to 3 cups of coffee was linked to that huge drop in prostate cancer progression. But, and this is wild, for the other half of us, the slow metabolizers, drinking more coffee was actually linked to an increased risk, the exact same drink leading to completely opposite outcomes. It's like the poster child for personalized nutrition.
So that brings up another really interesting thought. What if the real key here isn't in the dark roasted coffee we all know and love, but in the beans before they ever get roasted? Let's talk about the green coffee factor. The star of this part of the story is something called chlorogenic acid, or CGA for short. It's a really powerful antioxidant, and it's the single most abundant bioactive compound you'll find in those raw, unroasted green coffee beans. And here's the kicker. A ton of it gets destroyed when the beans go through that high-heat roasting process.
I mean, the difference is just dramatic. Just look at the levels of CGA in green coffee beans versus roasted beans. The roasting just torches it. And this has got researchers thinking, are we literally roasting away some of the most powerful benefits?
This idea led to a small but pretty incredible finding. A 2023 trial tested what would happen if they injected CGA directly in patients with a very, very hard-to-treat brain cancer. And the results? They showed that CGA prolonged their median overall survival, almost doubling what's typical with standard treatments. Now, it's very early, but wow, that is an incredibly promising result. So, after all that, what are you supposed to do with this information? Let's talk about how you can take all these findings and turn them into a responsible, proactive conversation.
Okay, let's boil this all down to the key takeaways. First, drinking coffee is being linked to better outcomes in several big-name cancers. Second, this is not a magic wand. The effect is super specific and depends on the cancer type and even your own DNA. Third, it's not just about the buzz. There's a whole team of other compounds, like chlorogenic acid, doing heavy lifting. And finally, green coffee is this exciting new frontier for research precisely because it's so jam-packed with those other compounds.
And this brings us right back to the most important message of all. None of this is a prescription. This is not a green light to start chugging coffee all day long. The best way to think about this is as a tool, a really powerful conversation starter that you can bring to the one person who knows your health best, your oncologist. So, we'll leave you with this to chew on. Now that you're armed with all this research, is it possible that your simple daily coffee habit could be the starting point for your next and maybe most important conversation about your health? Thanks so much for joining us.